So, Cadman, we see a lot of cases that involve domestic violence or sexual assault that also involve strangulation. And the reason is that strangulation has become, one of the things that CID investigates, and it also elevates a case to OSTC, right? The Office of the Special Trial Counsel. What are the two main components of a strangulation offense?
So the two main components are going to be an impediment of either blood flow or air flow around the neck.
So I guess that means you cut off the blood supply or the air supply to the brain.
That's right.
And I guess you can cut the blood supply off a couple of ways. You can cut it off either through the arteries or through the veins, right?
Right.
And I guess it just depends on how hard one would squeeze the neck. And I suppose you can cut off the air supply also two ways, right? Through the neck itself or over the mouth and the nose by preventing somebody from breathing.
That's correct. And all of those mechanisms are included in the strangulation offense under the UCMJ.
So how do these offenses of strangulation medically manifest? I mean, what's some of the evidence that would tend to show that strangulation occurred?
So there's a lot of different types of evidence, and the tricky part about documenting these types of cases is some of the evidence appears quickly and then vanishes quickly. Other evidence is delayed in its onset and won't occur sometimes for days or even a week. And so it's very important that the timelines are clear when it comes to an initial evaluation and any follow-up evaluations, what the timing looked like in relation to the timing of the offense. And the injuries can be diverse. So there's the obvious ones that are things like bruising on the neck that is in the shape of fingers. There's petechiae. So basically blood vessels that are burst in the eyes and stuff. That's one of the ones that appears quickly and also disappears quickly. There's also certain subjective effects that a victim can have that they may report at a hospital, things like lightheadedness, headache, these subjective symptoms that also may make their way into the record.
Well, it seems to me that these cases of strangulation, unless there's a videotape of it, rely heavily on medical evidence or descriptions of medical conditions, either by the alleged victim or by physicians. Is that accurate?
That's exactly right.
So in the cases that I've had that involve strangulation, I've always had some type of medical consultant, whether it was a forensic nurse, a forensic doc, or somebody specialized in strangulation, to help me review the medical records. And one of the reasons is that we need to provide any alternative explanation for any injuries that might exist. And then we also need to determine whether or not the combination of injuries that might be documented could be interpreted as to be strangulation.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There are a ton of alternative explanations for every type of physical manifestation that comes from strangulation. And in addition to that, the timeline and the context of what was going on at the time matter. We mentioned petechiae in the eyes. That can occur from a lack of sleep. It can occur from alcohol. It can occur from vomiting if someone's hungover or if they're sick. There's a ton of ways that these symptoms can manifest that don't necessarily lead up to strangulation.
I had a client that was facing an administrative separation board, and one of the allegations was strangulation. And when we went back to the very first CID interview of the victim, the alleged victim, and had it transcribed, it said in there, she said that she could breathe normally and she did not feel any effects of him putting his hand on her throat, right? None. Now, that was not in the IA, right? The investigators, the IA or the CAS entry or any of the entries that the CID investigator had didn't say that, right? We had to go back to the tape, go back to the witness interview, have it transcribed before we found that. And so it's really important that somebody who's facing strangulation not only looks at all the statements that were made by the alleged victim, but also looks at all the medical records. So it's a very discovery intense process, because you want every medical record from the date from the alleged strangulation until current, right? Because you want long-term treatment, you want treatment protocols, you want if there's any other reasons for somebody experiencing a headache, like they have a history of headaches, anything of that nature. And it's critical that you have this physician or this forensic nurse who can help inform you on cross-examination of the government's expert, which will either be a doctor or a forensic nurse.
That's exactly right. And then, speaking of evidence, there's even more beyond the medical. Sometimes they're taken in the medical, sometimes they're taken in a CID or other investigatory context, but things like photographs. I mean, that's one of the most popular pieces of evidence in any strangulation case can be photographs. And what's really telling can be things like the type of flash, the intensity of the flash that was used, the type of lighting in the room, whether this is a particularly pale person like I am and maybe marks them a little more easily, or whether they have a darker skin tone. All of those things matter. All of those things can also be analyzed by the defense to make sure that the evidence has multiple explanations as you go through the trial.
Yeah, I had one case where the government was trying to prove strangulation because the victim sounded different the next day, right? That she had a raspy voice, and of course on cross-examination, the expert had to agree with me that if you smoke too many cigarettes, you could have a raspy voice. If you drank too much alcohol, you could have a raspy voice. If you were screaming at a concert, you could have a raspy voice. So you've got to be able to put in context all the different reasons why somebody may have that individual specific symptom. Now, would you say some of the things that a client should do if they're accused of strangulation? What should they do for their lawyer?
Well, the first thing that any client needs to do with their lawyer is understand the attorney-client relationship. Understand that what you say to me, whether you have retained me or not, what you say to me in a legal context and representing your rights is 100% secure forever. And because of that, in order to defend you effectively, I got to know the truth and I got to know all the facts. And so with all of the facts, that's going to lead to the best defense. It's going to arm us with what we need to go out there and figure out what we need and to verify all of that information. So number one thing is call your lawyer and be honest.
Right. And part of calling your lawyer is also sharing all the evidence, all the photographs, all the videos, all the people who were there, all the people who are the alleged victim's friends, so we can talk to them about how she sounded the next day, or whether she complained of any headaches, or whether or not there were any noticeable marks on her body, or any of those things. So it's real important that we get the full picture so that we can conduct the defense investigation. If you're facing allegations of strangulation, or you've been accused of committing any type of crime against a person, give us a call. We're the law office of Will M. Helixon. We are your warrior advocates. You defend the nation, we defend you.